This video is sponsored by Squarespace. You should subscribe.
We've entered the golden age of LEGO Star Wars, or at least what I have been told was the golden age of LEGO Star Wars. If you're new here, hi, my name is Holly and I'm a massive LEGO Star Wars fan. However, I only started buying the sets and really getting into the theme in 2020, so a lot of this is new to me, but I do really like learning things, so I decided to do a really big deep dive into the history of LEGO Star Wars. In the first episode of this series, I covered the early days of LEGO Star Wars and even delved into LEGO's background and sort of bankruptcy at that point, and then today we're going to delve into one of the most exciting eras, I feel like, and also the one that I kind of briefly paid attention to kind of in the background while I was buying LEGO Harry Potter. And I've made a very convenient timeline on this wall to kind of go through everything in chronological order from years 2007 until 2014, which means the next episode will sort of bring us into the Disney era of LEGO Star Wars. Now, if you're wondering why we're starting in 2007, well, there is one major reason for that, and that is I feel like it kind of kicks off this new era, but not really, but also kind of, in that the first thing that I guess is notable for 2007 was the introduction of the Battle Pack set. These days, Battle Packs are pretty infamous and a very popular type of set to go and buy. They introduced the concept of build your army and have been a very solid fan favorite for several years. It was a really cheap set that you could buy that contained a lot of really cool minifigures. And in 2007, there were two Battle Packs that were introduced to us, being the Clone Trooper Battle Pack as well as the Droid Battle Pack. Now, Battle Packs are something that LEGO Star Wars has continued on to this day. However, the kind of way the set was designed has sort of changed a little bit, but basically the whole concept was you would get 4 minifigures as well as like some sort of little builds, and each of those minifigures would come with a blaster or some type of weapon, and it really hasn't strayed very far from that since. I've just realized I didn't write any cards for the years. Oh no. Now, because they were so cheap as well as the army building nature, Battle Packs instantly became a hit and were certainly one of the most well-known things I think to come out of 2007, beaten only by the UCS Millennium Falcon, which was upside down. Not to be confused with this UCS Millennium Falcon, even though the more I talk about it, the more that you'll think I'm talking about that one. Now, the original UCS Millennium Falcon at the time, just like, you know, the other one, was the largest set ever released. Now, back then, that meant it was 5,197 pieces, and I believe it retailed for $500 US as well, and was kind of the crown jewel of LEGO Star Wars. I mean, how could it not be? It's no surprise that they kind of replicated this whole concept and idea years later, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're only going to talk about the original UCS Falcon. Now, this was a hot commodity. It was the largest UCS set ever, again, largest LEGO set ever for a while, and it was really just kind of this big monumental thing. No one really knew that LEGO sets could get that big at this point. However, by today's standards, I mean, it's kind of become more of like the average direct-to-consumer style set, which is a crazy concept to think about, and I kind of wish we would go back to the days where these one-off sets would be the largest sets ever at like 5,000 pieces, but that aside, this set was magnificent. It was beautiful, it was glorious, and will now cost you several $1,000s like a lot of LEGO Star Wars sets, but it really just was kind of the biggest and best thing to come out of 2007. With that all being said as well, it certainly wasn't kind of the one big amazing set that I feel like a lot of people remember from 2007. Some other highlights were the Trade Federation MTT, which is a really awesome, cool, beloved, and also again, very expensive LEGO set. There was also the motorized AT-AT, and again, very, very cool. Outside of the sets though, the biggest thing to happen in 2007 though was the 30th anniversary of Star Wars just in general, which is a large reason to why the UCS Falcon even got made in the first place. It was a really big celebration of this milestone. I tried to make little like 30th birthday candles, though I don't think that worked necessarily. And like the Millennium Falcon, to celebrate the 30th year, there was a really cool special exclusive that were thrown into random sets. Now, you may be familiar with the Chrome Gold C-3PO, which these days retails for around $1,000 US. Now, the way to get these was by buying sets that were released in 2007. So if there are any sealed Millennium Falcons out there, there could also be a Chrome Gold C-3PO in there, though I think people did kind of weigh the sets to see if there was kind of a gram difference. You could find all of the sets with the Chrome Gold C-3PO. But anyway, he came sealed in this like white little plastic bag type of thing. And it was a really fun thing if you were buying LEGO Star Wars at the time, or you were buying it for someone, if they got this super cool, exclusive, rare thing as well. I don't think LEGO would do anything like that these these days, but kind of looking back, it was a really, really fun way to celebrate the theme overall. Which, speaking of exclusives as well, there was also the first ever Star Wars Celebration exclusive. Now, for those of you who don't know for some reason, there is this kind of annual, but not really annual anymore, convention called Star Wars Celebration. I was lucky enough to go this year, and it kind of hops around to different cities. And since 2007, LEGO has typically usually done some sort of exclusive for this, whether that be an exclusive set, an exclusive tile, an exclusive promotion. I mean, most of the time it is a set, and they started this in 2007 with this really cool looking box with like a little panel at the back that had some minifigures in it. I don't think the minifigures necessarily were exclusive, but the whole kind of packaging and presentation was. Now, the way that this worked back in 2007 is that you would enter a raffle, and then if you won the raffle, you would win the opportunity to buy it. Honestly, I think you should have just like won the thing if you're gonna like enter it as a raffle, and it was only limited to 500 people as well. Odd. Anyway, that was a thing. It's really cool, and that did start a tradition of the Star Wars Celebration exclusives, and even I guess just like con exclusives in general. Kind of skipping ahead here, but con exclusives aren't really a thing anymore, so I feel like this was kind of a really cool, exclusive, like fun collectible item for LEGO Star Wars collectors. But as we move on to 2008, we are heading to our first kind of new piece of Star Wars media since the prequel trilogy ended, and that was the Clone Wars. So firstly, there was the Clone Wars movie that released, as well as the Clone Wars TV show, and this was really the next big break for Star Wars. Now, it was an animated show, and I feel like back in the day it was always pitched kind of as a kids show, and then as it progressed it kind of became more for everyone, and they dealt with kind of more mature themes and such. But of course, with new Star Wars media as well, there is going to be new LEGO sets based on that Star Wars media, and this is where we had the birth of the Clone Wars sets. Now, with the introduction of the Clone Wars, I feel like it was really perfect for LEGO, because LEGO of course is like really trying to target kids, but they've also got adult collectors, and I think the Clone Wars show was pretty much trying to do the same thing as well, and it really nicely tied into the prequels that had just wrapped up, so it was kind of like a LEGO fan's dream. And like the Clone Wars, I guess these days, is something that people really seek out of LEGO sets, and like during this time it was so heavily filled with it. However, it also meant we got the introduction of these creepy faces. I'd hate them personally. I don't really like buying a lot of like old retired Clone Wars stuff purely because of these faces, unless it's like a character's outfit or like a special version that's only come in this, and then I hope that I can like get a custom face or like swap out the face so that they don't look like this. I don't know, I've just never really liked it. I understand that there's a lot of nostalgia tied to these minifigures and like these sets and all of that, but to me, it's kind of like a big pass. Anything modern, yeah, absolutely on board for. There are some elements and some sets that I also think are really cool, but for the most part for me, I just kind of avoid it. One of the sets from this wave that I really wanted to touch on as well is the kind of Clone Wars gunship that they released. Currently, it is the only kind of Clone Wars gunship to ever exist. The rest of them have been based on the prequel trilogy, which also allowed this set to kind of be very fresh, very interesting, and have a really different feel to it, which I honestly think was a really good thing, and I think especially during this time period was very needed for a type of set like the Republic gunship, since they just wrapped up all of the prequel stuff. There was also a UCS style kind of brick-built General Grievous that was really cool. I think this set just like looks really interesting. It's again something very different and something I wouldn't mind them revisiting either. And then besides that, I mean, there was a lot of like really good like prequel heavy Clone Wars type of sets, but since it was the 10-year anniversary of LEGO Star Wars, there was some mild celebrating as well as some original trilogy stuff in order of releasing. It was such a prequel heavy year, in fact, that going off the back of our Star Wars Celebration exclusive, there was a Clone Wars themed sort of San Diego Comic-Con set that released, which I also believe was limited to 500, though I don't know how exactly that one was kind of given out or sold or whatever. And then the last, I feel like, and most notable thing from 2008 is the first ever playset Death Star. This set is so iconic. I mean, the remake got featured in Spider-Man Homecoming, which was really cool, and I feel like it's always been one of those things that like you would see as a kid in like a product catalog, no matter what type of stuff you were into. Like even growing up playing with Barbies and Playmobil and Lego and like Lego Harry Potter and not really caring about Star Wars at all, I always knew that this set existed. It's one of those kind of classic play sets that every kid wanted, but just like never got. You'd put it on your Christmas list and it kind of became this like really, really iconic Star Wars set. I mean, it deserved that title too. It lasted 8 years on shelves in the end. And I feel like that was really the kind of thing that I think of when I think like Star Wars in 2008. As much as there was a ton of Clone Wars stuff, it's the Death Star that really like kind of caps off the year for me. Now, as we move into 2009, again, it was a really, really big year, and there are a lot of notable sets that I feel like came out, and all of those sets I think personally would belong really well on a table.
Now that sounds like a job for SetsOnATable.com. Squarespace's web design tools have helped me create the most popular website ever, SetsOnATable.com. Today I'm proud to announce the latest section of our website, Sets Off a Table, where I've been able to integrate my social media channels using Squarespace's built-in tools. Their fluid engine makes web design so simple, allowing you to create your own website that works on any device in whatever format you want. For example, if you've been wanting to set up an online store, Squarespace can help you reach an audience by getting your products listed quick and easy, as they take care of all of the back end. If you want to have a go at making your own website, head to squarespace.com/HollyOnFilm to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code HollyOnFilm.
Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Now back to 2009, which the biggest thing is that it was the 10-year anniversary of Lego Star Wars. Now I believe actually that the first contract was supposed to be up at around this time, which obviously it got renewed, which is really exciting, but also it's 10 years of Lego Star Wars. We're gonna do some really cool things to celebrate. So a lot of cool things happened, of course, as a result. The first cool thing being the introduction of mini scale with the mini scale Falcon. Beforehand, everything had been a play set, or of course we had the giant UCS set, or even a couple of like little poly bags or mini builds and things like that, but something that was kind of a lot smaller, budget friendly, and also would still look really good on a shelf really hadn't happened. So the introduction of mini scale was kind of a really cool, revolutionary thing, even if, spoiler alert, they didn't last very long. Second cool thing, and also tying in with the Clone Wars, was the introduction of our one and only, at least for now, Lego Venator, whichever happened, which this is expensive for that reason. It was a really fun kind of big playset, which was really, really cool. Again, had the creepy Clone Wars minifigure heads, because that was still in full force, and for any fan of like the Clone Wars or the prequels movies, was a really big win. But on the celebratory side of things, just like C-3PO, Lego decided to do another fun kind of like throw it in a random set blind bag type of thing, this time with 10,000 Chrome Vaders, which followed a very similar format. They were released in every single set that was released in 2009. Anything outside of that, it was not going to be found in. So if it was a set that was released in 2009, however, it was being produced in 2010, it wouldn't have it in it. So really, you kind of had to be a little bit kind of quick on your feet here. Now, Vader is nowhere near kind of as valuable as C-3PO. I mean, there was 10,000 of them versus 1,000 Chrome C-3PO, so that really adds a lot to it. I also don't think it kind of had the same wow factor as C-3PO. I think that one made a lot more sense than Vader. He's cool if you ever get the chance to see one. He looks incredible. If I found one in a set, yeah, I'd be happy, but like, I'm not gonna go and buy one. I mean, granted, I'm not gonna buy any of these special minifigures at the end of the day, but you know, 10,000 Chrome Vaders. Less on the celebratory front, more on the kind of memorable things front. There was our one and only kind of build of the what's this thing called? Home 1 Mon Calamari Cruiser, which contained our only minifigure of Mon Mothma. I cannot believe that she hasn't been made since. Mon Mothma is an icon. I mean, I really think that Endor and Rebels helped with that, but still, she's a very prominent character, and the fact that she only came in this set in 2009 is like really weird to me, especially kind of when I realized and sat down and actually looked her up. Offended, really. And the last super notable set, in my opinion, and one that I am patiently waiting for Lego to remake, is the Battle for Endor. I really hope you like my little drawing of an Ewok. Now, this was the big kind of UCS set for the year, the big 10-year anniversary celebration type of thing, and I was all for it. I look at this set now and I'm like, look, you kind of suck, but also it's like the only real depiction of the Battle for Endor and the Endor bunker that we have had outside of like a couple of micro scale versions. And I say a couple very loosely because off the top of my head, I'm not sure if it was more than this one promotion, but where is this? Where is our Endor stuff? Come on, 40 years of Return of the Jedi this year. Can we like have an Endor bunker, please? I say that as if I'm not happy about the sets we're actually getting. That being said, Endor bunker, please and thank you. Looking at the timeline, you can see that 2009 was a bit full on and a bit chaotic, but let's go over to 2010. It's also the Empire Strikes Back's 30th anniversary, and you know what that means based on our tradition recently. We're gonna have an exclusive minifigure in a poly bag, and it was White Boba Fett. White Boba Fett is based on the kind of prototype for Boba Fett, and I think this was a fantastic minifigure to do as the kind of 30th anniversary, kind of celebratory little minifigure type of thing. And rather than a let's put it in the set and hope that you get it type of thing, it was a store promotion given out a bit more widely, which was really nice. And the minifigure overall, really, really cool. And because it was the 30th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, there was a lot of Empire themed sets and a lot specifically of Hoth sets, which is the reason we even have our first ever and only ever Wampa/Wampa Cave. I say Wampa Cave meaning like actual set and not advent calendar build. The fact that like this hasn't popped up since, honestly, kind of criminal. I remember the Wampa as a kid and just like seeing the mold, and I was like, that's really cool. It's a lot better depicted in actual photos than on my drawing, but like overall, really, really cool sets. I feel like Empire Strikes Back's like 40th anniversary really didn't hit quite as hard as like 30 years did. 30 years, we were going all out, but also I guess 40 years, we had more stuff to juggle. It's excusable, really, is what I'm trying to get at. In 2010 as well, the kind of midi scale range continued on with a Star Destroyer set, and really that was kind of the death of the line for a while as well, which was quite unfortunate. There was also a Chrome Stormtrooper that was done as a promotion. This one certainly was a Toys R Us exclusive, which was really cool and kind of completed the trilogy of Chrome minifigures if you were lucky enough to own all 3 of them. Oddly enough, even though it was the 30th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, there was a prequel themed UCS set, which was Obi-Wan Starfighter, which admittedly is one of very few prequel themed UCS sets, and honestly is really, really cool, but it kind of did feel a little bit out of place in this year to me, but that's really what wrapped up the year 2010. Then we move into 2011, which by far was a much more calmer year compared to the last couple, because there were only really 2 notable things that happened. The first was our first ever Lego May the 4th promotion. It was a Shadow Arc Trooper, which is one of the most expensive clone trooper minifigures to ever exist. And why? Well, it was given away as a May the 4th promotion, and back when they did this, it was only running on May 3rd and May 4th rather than a whole weekend or a whole week that you would see more commonly these days. This poly bag as well sold out incredibly quickly. It was really, really hard to get a hold of, and since it is a clone of, like, people want multiple. So it makes total sense that it is so expensive these days, but thanks to this poly bag, we now have consistently a May the 4th promotion every year, even though, you know, they're not all quite as exciting as the minifigure poly bags or one of my personal favorites, Aunt Brew's Kitchen. The only other thing that I think is worth mentioning is the advent calendars, which also started in 2011. Otherwise, I don't really think there was that much going on. But you know, both of these things continue to this day and are kind of an annual tradition at this point, so I'll give it that. In case you were wondering as well, in 2011, the Super Star Destroyer was the UCS set for the year and has been our only UCS Super Star Destroyer, though I feel like most UCS sets are kind of the only one to exist. As we move into 2012, the Brick Show's channel is in full swing, and as a result, they introduced me to one of the best ever and my personal favorite Lego minifigures to ever exist, and that is my beloved Queen Amidala. Now, this minifigure is iconic, and she was the only version of Queen Amidala that we have ever gotten that was included in the Gungan sub, and of course, she was the main selling point for this set, and for some reason, like, the Brick Show talking about and reviewing this minifigure is so ingrained in my memory. I hadn't even seen the prequels at this point. I didn't know who Queen Amidala was. I didn't know she was played by Natalie Portman, but she has always been kind of an icon to me, and there is no doubt that she's one of the best and coolest aspects that was released in 2012. I would even argue that she's one of the best things to ever be released in Lego Star Wars history. Another really cool piece from 2012 was the Jabbas Palace set. Now, I also own this one because I just think it's the best model. Like, Boba's Palace is disappointing, but Jabbas Palace is fantastic, and I don't think that they're ever gonna make this set like they did again, purely because, firstly, I think Ula is a little bit too controversial for these days, which is unfortunate because that minifigure is amazing. Secondly, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the shape of Jabba's palace because it is taken from, I can't remember what religion it is, and they believe it looks like a mosque, which is a fair comparison, but they got annoyed at it. Lego didn't pull the set or anything, they didn't adjust it, they just retired it at the end of its lifespan, and then never did a roof like this again. Understandable, but unfortunate. I'm pretty sure it's Muslim now that I think about it. Anyway, Jabbas Palace exists. It's a beautiful set. Again, very expensive, and introduced a brand new Jabba the Hutt mold, which is fantastic, might I add. And just like Queen Amidala, holds up to this day. 2012 to me was on another level when it came to Lego. Honestly, I feel like 2010 and kind of like to 13, peak years of Lego. Speaking of icons, 2012 was also the year that Palpatines Arrest released. Now, I don't know if they're ever going to make this set again, similarly to, I feel like, most things from 2012, but this set is amazing. You've got a couple of exclusive Jedi, you have that whole iconic scene depicted, which in its own right is awesome. The layout of the set, a little bit janky, but it is very much desired these days and is a really, really cool set, and I feel like just a very fun thing to have in Lego form. I would love for them to remake it. I feel like a lot of people are in agreement with me on that one. The Jedi look amazing, and if you want to have a complete set of Jedi, you will have to fork out the money for this, but also just being able to represent the whole, like, you are not the Senate scene. That really, I think, is why it deserves to be on this timeline. Lastly, for 2012, I have written down the start of a brand new kind of budget-friendly series, which was the Planet series. Now, in total, there were 4 waves, 12 releasing in total, 3 of which never actually released in the United States, which is kind of interesting. And overall, these were really, really cool. It was a great, cheap way to get a tiny little model of a ship, as well as a minifigure, and these really, really cool planet pieces. It was a very, very short-lived series, but I feel like it was the great start of kind of that cheaper budget end type of Star Wars set that you didn't really see much outside of the battle packs. As we approach 2013, I feel like there wasn't actually that many things that are timeline worthy, but I did write a lot down in my notes. But the first thing I want to add to the timeline is Jabba's sail barge, because this is a set that I don't know how this is going to be remade when it ever happens. Now, some of the best parts about this sail barge set were, firstly, the design overall looked amazing. Secondly, it had the inclusion of Max Rebo, an absolute icon, and thirdly, has possibly the last ever Slave Leia minifigure to ever exist. I mean, if they ever do make one, firstly, I think she's going to be called Hutt Slayer Leia, which also works really nicely. Secondly, I don't know if she's ever going to be made either, because there was like so much controversy about it, which personally, I think they should make her. I really like the Slave Leia outfit and just the character and everything about her. I made an entire video on that a couple of years ago. So I did go out and buy her just in case, because the minifigure herself is iconic. Again, much like this kind of same era of Star Wars, was well ahead of its time. In terms of super iconic sets, we had the Ewok Village, which is one that I absolutely love and would really love to get someday. There was also a Rancor pit that released, including the first and only ever Rancor kind of molded creature, which is amazing. We also brought back Jango Fett for the first time ever with a brand new look and a brand new helmet style, which was really cool. And continuing on with the prequel stuff as well, there were a lot of episode 2 sets. There was the Duel on Geonosis with a brand new prequels Yoda, as well as a Count Dooku minifigure, who interestingly enough used the same face as Saruman, since they're the same actor, which was really cool, and I love that Count Dooku minifigure. We also had the iconic 2013 Republic gunship, which is a beautiful model. Unfortunately, this is the year that the Planet series did die, and for our UCS set, we got our second iteration of the UCS X-Wing, which honestly I think is probably the best one. The X-Wing though did feel a little bit out of place for me, just given how prequel heavy the year was as a whole, because also we got one of the most popular and kind of desired Clone Wars sets because of a certain minifigure, and that was Phase 2 Captain Rex, who is again very expensive and only just about to be remade if the rumors are true, but he's going to come in a really expensive set. Which all of this brings us to our final year of the golden age of Lego Star Wars, and that is 2014. Now I feel like kind of looking back, you might be like, oh, this year wasn't actually that good. However, you know, Rebels came out, and I just finished Rebels recently, and it is by far one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars media. I absolutely love it, and because of that, as well as the Ghost and the Phantom set that were released in that year, I really feel like it carried 2014, which is why it gets to be included in the golden age of Lego Star Wars. Big fan of Rebels, big fan of the Ghost, big fan of the Phantom set. Also, all of the minifigures were fantastic in those sets. It's no wonder they are so sought after. I mean, part of that also does come come down to the fact that people hated Rebels when it came out. I didn't really know about the show until a couple of years later, so unfortunately I had to pay those retired prices. But 2014 gave us Rebels, and for that I am eternally grateful. Now inside the Ghost as well, for the first couple of releases, there was a slightly modified version of the Kanan minifigure, who rather than having a dark brown hairpiece and dark brown eyebrows, he actually had black hair and black eyebrows, naming him the black-haired Kanan. That's kind of a little fact when it comes to the Rebels and the Ghost. Since the Planet series did wrap up though, it was time to give us a little replacement for those more budget-friendly Lego sets, giving us the birth of the Microfighters sub-theme. Now the Microfighters sub-theme, again, is one that I think is really, really cool. You get a tiny little build that is really, really space-friendly and also budget-friendly, and it would give you a really cool minifigure. The Microfighters line even gave us a beautiful Phase 2 clone trooper, which again is really valuable, just like a lot of things in Lego Star Wars. I don't even know why I bother telling you, because just most things are valuable. It was a great way to get some really good minifigures, some really good iconic characters, and not spend too much money. Microfighters is amazing. It's still continuing on to this day. However, instead of doing like a ton of releases each year and kind of calling them series, they just release like 1 or 2 a year now and don't really go by like a series name anymore, which is kind of unfortunate. But I do love a good Microfighter. But as much as I did just praise 2014, that's it. There wasn't really much notable stuff that happened in 2014, besides the fact that it was the end of the kind of individual Lucasfilm era, as Disney had just bought Star Wars and was about to kind of come under their control. But this, to me, is the golden era of Lego Star Wars, and I feel like this is kind of true, honestly. Like, a lot of people really regard it as that, and just going through and looking at all of the different sets and the things that released, as well as the promos and the special celebration items, it really does hold up to that title. And I feel like we're slowly approaching a kind of another version of this type of thing, just with the amount of variety that we're getting, the quality of the sets. There are a couple of glaring issues when it comes to minifigures, or I guess sets accuracy sometimes, but as a whole, I feel like we are getting a lot better and closer to what was this beautiful, giant, glorious era. Unfortunately, I didn't get to be a part of it as a Star Wars fan or even a Lego Star Wars fan, and really just kind of watch from a distance in the latter half of the golden age. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below. And if you haven't watched part 1 to this video, I will leave it linked on the end screen here. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and be sure to check them out using my link in the description down below. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later.